let me tell you something that might sting for a moment, the apology or for may never come. And the longer you wait for it, the more you hand your power to someone who has already broken your trust. Betrayal does something violent to the soul. It doesn't just break your heart, it makes you question your worth. You replay the conversations. You analyze the warning signs. You wonder what you missed. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispers, if they would just apologize, maybe I'd finally feel okay. But here's the truth: an apology is not proof of your value. It is not oxygen. It is not closure. It is not healing. When someone betrays you, your nervous system goes into survival mode. You crave resolution because your brain wants safety restored. You want them to say, I was wrong. You mattered. You want the story rewritten in a way that protects your dignity. But when you depend on someone who lacks self-awareness, empathy, or courage to suddenly develop those qualities, you are building your healing on sand. And that waiting, it slowly erodes your self-respect. I need you to hear this clearly. Your worth was never dependent on their ability to own their wrongdoing. Their silence is not a verdict on your value. Their defensiveness is not a measurement of your importance. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop waiting. Let's go deeper, because this isn't just about pride, it's about pain. When someone betrays you, it ruptures your sense of reality. The person you trusted becomes the person who harmed you. That contradiction is psychologically disorienting. Your mind scrambles to make sense of it, and the apology becomes the bridge you think will reconnect the broken pieces. You don't just want sorry. You want acknowledgement. You want validation. You want proof that you weren't crazy for loving them. There is a primal need inside all of us to be seen accurately. When betrayal happens, you feel unseen, misjudged, discarded. The apology feels like it would restore your dignity, like it would say you were right to expect better. But here's the brutal truth. People who betray and refuse accountability are often protecting their own fragile egos. If they admit the harm, they must confront shame. And some people will choose denial over growth every single time. So you wait. You rehearse imaginary conversations. You hope they'll wake up one day with clarity. But what you're really doing is tying your healing to someone who is emotionally unavailable. And that is exhausting. You are not weak for wanting closure. You are human. But closure does not come from their confession. It comes from your clarity. The moment you realize they may never be capable of giving me what I deserve, something shifts. It hurts. But it also frees you. There is something almost more painful than the betrayal itself, and that is their silence afterward. The denial, the minimizing, the pretending it wasn't that serious. It feels like being wounded twice. First, they break your trust. Then, they refuse to hold the weight of what they did. And your nervous system screams, how can they not see this? How can they not care? But here's what I need you to understand. Their inability to acknowledge the harm is not proof that the harm didn't happen. It is proof that they are not emotionally equipped to face it. Some people survive by rewriting reality. They downplay, they deflect, they blame you. Not because you deserve it, but because accountability would shatter the image they have of themselves. And if you keep demanding clarity from someone committed to distortion, you will start doubting your own memory. That's the danger. You begin to think, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I expected too much, maybe I should just let it go. No, you can release the need for their apology without invalidating your pain. Those are two very different things. Let me say this clearly. You can accept that they will never take responsibility without accepting that what they did was okay. Their silence is about their limitations. It is not a reflection of your worth. And sometimes the most radical act of self-respect is believing your own experience. Even when they refuse to, there is a lie we tell ourselves after betrayal. It sounds reasonable. It sounds hopeful. It sounds fair. If they would just apologize, I could move on. But healing that depends on someone else's transformation is not healing. It's emotional captivity. You are placing the key to your freedom in the hands of the very person who hurt you. And if they are unwilling to unlock the door, You remain stuck waiting, watching, hoping. An apology can feel powerful. Yes, it can validate, it can soften. But here's what most people don't tell you. Even when apologies come, they don't magically restore your self-worth, because your self-worth was never broken by their words. It was shaken by your belief that their behavior defined you. That's the real wound. Betrayal whispers you weren't enough. You were replaceable. You didn't matter. And so you chase an apology to disprove those lies. But the truth is this: their betrayal says everything about their character and nothing about your value. Waiting for them to change keeps you emotionally entangled. It keeps you scanning their behavior. It keeps your heart tethered to someone who has already shown you their limits. Healing begins the moment you say, even if they never say sorry, I choose to believe I deserved better. That is power. That is self-trust returning. And that is where your real recovery starts. After betrayal, something subtle and dangerous happens. You don't just question them, you start questioning yourself. You wonder if you were too sensitive, too demanding, too emotional, too much. And when they refuse to apologize, that doubt grows louder. Because if they act like it wasn't a big deal, maybe you're the one exaggerating. Maybe you expected too much loyalty. Maybe your pain is inconvenient. Listen to me carefully, expecting honesty, respect, and accountability does not make you too much. It makes you healthy. When someone cannot meet healthy standards, they often reframe those standards as unreasonable. That's how they protect themselves from shame. They shrink your expectations so they don't have to rise to meet them. And if you internalize that distortion, you start negotiating against your own dignity. Betrayal doesn't just hurt because of what happened. It hurts because it destabilizes your sense of worth. It tempts you to lower your standards so you don't have to feel abandoned again. But self-worth is not built by making yourself smaller to accommodate someone else's emotional immaturity. It is built by saying, no, what I needed was valid. You were not too intense. You were not dramatic. You were not asking for perfection. You were asking for integrity. And if someone cannot offer that, their limitation is not evidence of your excess. The moment you stop apologizing for your pain is the moment you begin honoring it. One of the most exhausting things you can do after betrayal is this: you keep explaining your pain to someone who has already decided not to understand it. You rephrase it. You soften your tone. You bring evidence. You beg them to see your perspective. Because deep down, you believe that if they truly understood how much they hurt you, they would finally feel remorse. But here's the hard truth: empathy cannot be forced. Awareness cannot be extracted. Growth cannot be demanded. When someone is committed to protecting their ego, your pain becomes a threat. Instead of leaning in, they shut down. Instead of reflecting, they defend. Instead of apologizing, they counterattack. And every time you try again, you injure yourself a little more. There is a difference between healthy conflict and emotional chasing. Healthy conflict requires two people willing to self-examine. Emotional chasing is when you keep pouring vulnerability into someone who keeps handing you denial. At some point, you must ask yourself, am I seeking healing or am I seeking validation from someone incapable of giving it? You cannot extract empathy from the unwilling. You cannot educate someone into accountability if they refuse to look inward. Your energy is precious. Your pain is sacred. Stop placing both at the feet of someone who has shown you they will not hold them with care. Sometimes self-worth means walking away from the conversation, not because you didn't have a point, but because you finally realize they will never meet you in it. We romanticize closure as this clean cinematic moment, a calm conversation, honest tears, a sincere apology, a final hug, and then peace. But most betrayals don't end that way. Most end in confusion, in half-truths, in silence. And you staring at your phone, waiting for a message that never comes. And so you keep the story open. You tell yourself when they finally explain, when they finally admit it, when they finally say sorry, then I'll be able to close this chapter. But closure is not something they hand you. It is something you decide. Waiting for them to give you closure keeps you emotionally hooked. It keeps the wound fresh. It keeps your heart in negotiation mode. You're not healing. You're hovering. Here's what's uncomfortable but liberating. Sometimes closure is accepting that you will never fully understand why they did what they did. You may never get a satisfying explanation. You may never get accountability. You may never get remorse. And you can still move forward. Closure is not about agreement. It's about acceptance. It's about saying, I may not understand their behavior, but I understand my standards. It's choosing peace over proof. You don't need them to validate the ending. You don't need their confession to turn the page. Sometimes closure is simply this. They showed me who they are. I believe them. And that belief becomes the boundary that protects you. Here's the turning point. The moment you stop focusing on whether they will grow and start focusing on whether you will. Because if your healing depends on their redemption, you are still emotionally tied to their timeline. And that timeline may never move. Self-worth after betrayal is not rebuilt by convincing them to see your value. It is rebuilt by reconnecting to it yourself. Betrayal makes you feel discarded, replaceable, small. So your instinct is to prove yourself, to glow up, succeed louder, love harder, hoping they'll look back and finally realize what they lost. But self-worth is not a performance. It's not revenge success. It's not becoming irresistible to the person who rejected you. It's quieter than that. It's choosing not to beg for clarity. It's choosing not to stalk their growth. It's choosing not to monitor whether guilt ever catches up with them. It's saying my I value is not waiting for their realization. You rebuild self-worth by keeping your standards intact, not by lowering them to re-enter a relationship that already harmed you. You rebuild it by honoring your boundaries, by trusting your intuition next time, by believing that being betrayed does not make you unworthy, it makes you human. Their redemption is their responsibility. Your restoration is yours. And when you stop confusing the two, you step back into your power, not because they changed, but because you did. Now let's talk about something that confuses so many people, forgiveness. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that being strong or spiritually mature means forgiving quickly, letting it go, moving on gracefully. And if you're still hurt, still angry, still wanting an apology, maybe you're the problem. No, forgiveness is not permission. It is not pretending it didn't matter. It is not inviting someone back into your life without accountability. Real forgiveness is internal. It is releasing your attachment to revenge. It is choosing not to let bitterness define you. But it does not require reconciliation. And it certainly does not require you to abandon your standards. You can forgive someone and still decide they no longer get access to you. You can release the resentment and still maintain the boundary. Forgiveness without boundaries is self-abandonment. And after betrayal, the last thing you need is more self-abandonment. Sometimes what people call forgiveness is actually fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear of being seen as harsh. So you rush to make peace before you've fully honored your pain. But healing demands honesty. You are allowed to say, I wish you well, and I no longer trust you. You are allowed to move forward without waiting for their apology, without reopening the door. Forgiveness is about freeing your heart, not excusing their behavior. And freedom does not mean access. There will come a quiet moment, maybe not dramatic, maybe not loud, where you realize you are tired. Tired of rehearsing the speech you wish they would give. Tired of checking if guilt has finally softened them. Tired of hoping they will wake up one day and become the person you needed them to be. And in that moment, something powerful happens. You stop waiting. Not because it doesn't hurt anymore. Not because you suddenly don't care. But because you finally understand this truth. Your life cannot be paused for someone else's emotional evolution. You deserved honesty. You deserved accountability. You deserved care. And whether they admit that or not, it remains true. The apology you were chasing was never the real solution. What you were really seeking was reassurance that you are worthy, lovable, and enough. And here is the ending you've been waiting for. You are worthy, even if they never say it. You are lovable, even if they failed to love you well. You are enough, even if they chose differently. Stop asking someone who refuses to grow to validate your value. Choose yourself. Protect your peace. Keep your standards. And let this be the final chapter. You no longer wait for apologies from people who cannot change, because you finally remember who you are